Okay, we catch up with Eric Francis, who appears to be, at least for the cameras, in the middle of some home renovations, some green tape, some goggles. Wow, this is all access.
You know, you caught me at a real good time, actually. Just taking my 15-minute coffee break, so this is perfect.
Well done. Hey, listen, around the corner, hockey is about to return, and we can stop actually having these mindless conversations about home renos. We've got something to dig our teeth into, and that is hockey appears to be returning. And we can talk about all sorts of things as we get into camp, and I know we're going to have a lot of these conversations, but I want to talk about a couple of things as it pertains to the series with Calgary and Winnipeg. But first, I know you were pretty vocal about a return at all, and you were kind of doubtful, if you don't mind me saying, about a possible return. You didn't think this would happen, but has the NHL convinced you that this should be happening?
Yeah, you know what? No, I was not thinking this was going to happen. There have obviously been a lot of moving parts, and this is obviously a pretty strange time for all of us. And for the NHL to not only come up with some return-to-play protocols that make a ton of sense and I think will make the players feel very safe, but they managed to come up with another CBA in the meantime. I mean, I just think it's an incredible amount of productivity. They're a world leader in terms of professional sports leagues, in terms of what they've accomplished. They're coming back earlier than most other pro leagues. I give full kudos to the league. I did not see this coming. There are still a lot of hurdles, don't get me wrong, and it's going to be really awkward and weird and strange for everyone. But I'll replace all those words eventually with wonderful, because once we have hockey on TV and we're watching games after games after game every day, I think it's just going to be so incredible, and people are going to really buy into it.
Well, let's hope for everybody's sake the safety continues, the numbers stay low, and going into those hub cities, all players and everybody in and around it, for that matter, anywhere in this country, everybody's doing okay. But as it pertains to this conversation, Winnipeg and Calgary, that is the qualifying round matchup, an all-Canadian dream that it really does feature, Eric, a lot of skill, a lot of size, some interesting intangible and storylines. I want to start with that. What is the most intriguing storyline for you as it applies to the Calgary Flames?
You know, to me, it's pretty simple. It's the same old story. It's the same storyline we've had for the last handful of playoffs for the Calgary Flames. Can they get over their history of not performing well in the playoffs? You know, add to that the fact that nobody goes in with momentum anymore. Can this team, which is a notoriously slow starting team, you know, come out of the blocks just blazing? It's a tall task for a team, and there are a lot of question marks around them. And I actually think that'll be quite motivating for the players. They know that a lot of people are already counting them out or suggesting that they're not a playoff team. And if that motivates them to be a playoff team or help them start a little quicker, then all the power to them.
Playoff teams are very different than the regular season team, and we know that Calgary a year ago had 107 points, followed up by this season now, this past season, of more storylines than you could ever possibly imagine, from TJ Brodie collapsing on ice, from players underachieving, to the Bill Peters situation. A new coach comes in, and then the pandemic and the pause. So you wonder now with this return to play, if you will, what version you will see of the Calgary Flames, because at times they did show glimpses, moments that maybe they could be that dangerous team, at least what you saw in the regular season a year ago. But getting over the hump is one thing, and their core, Eric, does not have a lot of playoff success.
No, and you know, you look at some of the leaders on this team, the Johnny Gaudreaus, the Sean Monahans, the Mark Giordano, the real core of this team, as you say, and they've only won one of their last 9 playoff games over the last 3 years. So, you know, again, they've got this stigma attached to them that they're not a playoff performing team. Can they change that? I will say this. I think the adversity this year could serve them well. And it was starting to really serve them well. Before the pause, I think they won 7 of their last 8, and they were really humming along to just get into the playoff picture. You know, I think the theory all year long was, you know, if you could start building towards the playoffs. Well, nobody's building towards anyone. They're all starting building on Monday, and they go from there. It's going to be a sprint. It'll be interesting to see how Jeff Ward, the interim coach, handles them at camp and starting this play-in. You know, it's anyone's guess how you're going to motivate these troops, because nobody's gone through anything like this before.
Lines and pairings will be absolutely fascinating, won't they, for both sides? But for Calgary, you wonder what Jeff Ward goes back to, what he's used to, or does he just try to go, since there is no momentum, with maybe some fresh looks. They've had all kinds of time to tinker with the lineup, but the goaltending is probably the most intriguing. You could look at Connor Hellebuyck in Winnipeg and say that's the distinct advantage. But let's not forget, David Rittich was an all-star. And when the workload became a little bit heavy coming down the stretch, Cam Talbot proved he is more than capable in that 1A, 1B tandem. Who do they turn to for Calgary's goaltending situation to start? And what does the leash look like in terms of the length of how long that goaltender may stay between the pipes?
Well, in a best-of-5 series, how long can your leash really be, right? But it's a fascinating question. To me, I think the organization has really kind of decided prior to the pause, and they're probably thinking the same thing now, go with the veteran. David Rittich has never played in the NHL playoffs. He didn't play last year. That was the Mike Smith show, as we all remember, last year. So Cam Talbot's been in the playoffs. He's actually had some playoff success over the years when he was in Edmonton. And he was also the better goaltender the last 2-3 months of the season. I think those two things combined, all things being equal in camp, assuming both of them are healthy and both, fare well in camp, I think you got to go with Cam Talbot, and I would be shocked if they didn't go with Cam Talbot. And I was looking into the numbers, and, people try to compare the defense on both teams, the forwards, the goaltending. Well, Connor Hellebuyck, obviously, a Vezina Trophy candidate. They're in tough against a guy like that. But Cam Talbot's numbers this year, all year long, outside of wins and losses, are very similar to Connor Hellebuyck, and Hellebuyck is considered a Vezina Trophy guy. Over the last 2 months, their numbers are almost identical, Talbot and Hellebuyck. So theoretically, I guess on paper, you could say that it's an even up when it comes to the goaltending. But I think we all know at the end of the day, Hellebuck's got a bit of an advantage in that regard.
Well, and maybe the one advantage that the Flames have is who is playing in front of their goaltender. And that blue line, you'd have to probably give the nod to the Flames with their depth on defense. But what for you will this ultimately come down to in terms of a series win? It might be as simple as goaltending, but for you, what is it?
I think defense. To your point, like the goaltending, even if the Jets do have a bit of an advantage, the Flames have an advantage with far more veteran presence on the blue line, more cohesiveness, history together. They're 10 deep on the Calgary blue line because they added Derek Forbort and Gustafsson at the deadline this year. So they've got lots of options. It's a war of attrition in the playoffs. They can go with any sort of combinations they want. I think it's the team that, plays the best defensively. Both teams have huge stars up front. Their top 5 forwards on both sides are all stars and can put the puck in the net. It's who can stop those superstars. And the Calgary Flames, I think, have a bit of an advantage in that regard.
Can you believe that one of the teams between the Jets and the Flames, a loser of that qualifying round, could actually end up with a number 1 pick? This has just been mind-boggling when you factor everything that 2020 has thrown at us.
It is amazing. And, I know there are a faction of people who are thinking, it'd be better if the Flames lost and then they'd have a chance. They'd have a 12.5% chance at a franchise player. Sure, everybody'd love to be in a lottery like that. But the reality is the Calgary Flames have been built for the last 2-3 years to compete and to be a contender. I don't think many people see them as a pure cup contender right now, but this is a team that should be at least capable of winning a round or two in the playoffs with the talent they've assembled. This is not a time to be thinking about retooling or trying to win a lottery. Granted, it's a nice consolation prize. Nobody in Calgary should want that consolation prize right now.
Lots of work to be done on the ice, off the ice, and we will let you get back to work in that so-called man cave behind you. Thanks for doing this, Eric.
Good to see you, my friend.